Hi everyone, I'm Tess Galen, the events assistant at the Athenaeum of Philadelphia. Before we get started tonight, let's make a cocktail. For this drink, you will need Applejack or an apple brandy, simple syrup, either store-bought or homemade, either one, champagne, and a lemon. So first, we will add 2 ounces of our apple brandy to our cocktail shaker, and then 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice, and 3/4 of an ounce of our simple syrup. Then just add ice and shake to combine. Then take a champagne glass and we will pour this in. And then top with champagne. Garnish with a lemon wedge. Cheers, everyone.
Welcome to the Athenaeum's annual shareholder meeting. On behalf of the board and staff of the Athenaeum, let me say that we are so grateful for each one of you for your commitment to the Athenaeum, whether you are a longtime or a brand new shareholder. It has been an honor to serve you and our wider community during this past year. This evening, we hope you have your cocktail in hand and are ready for a little music, a little laughter, a review of our year, and a peek at what's to come. I'm delighted to be here this evening with Athenaeum President Ned Scharf. Ned?
Thank you, Beth. It is a great pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. As president of the board, I've had the joy of working with our board and our staff during an amazingly full year. Despite the many closures and limitations caused by the pandemic, your Athenaeum leadership has focused on providing you with quality services. We've also focused this time on ways to renew and reinvigorate our beloved institution, to shift the Athenaeum from being a hidden treasure — we don't particularly like being a hidden treasure, we want to be a conspicuous treasure — in Philadelphia to a recognized and integral part of the cultural and civic life of our community. You'll learn more about some of these initiatives soon and get to welcome a new slate of board of directors during the business portion of our meeting. Personally, I'm really looking forward to the announcements of the 2020 Literary Award winners, and I hope you are too. Beth?
We only wish that we were gathered here in person to raise our glasses to health and to the exciting future of the Athenaeum as we enjoy day by day's divine lemon bars and deviled eggs. Unfortunately, we don't have those here either. We hope it will soon be safe to do so. But for now, I invite you to get comfortable and to enjoy some lovely music. Ned.
Our shareholder, Bonnie Slavodian, is the force behind Allegro Presents, our partner in bringing gorgeous chamber music to the Athenaeum. We are pleased to present 2 pieces this evening from Allegro Music Presents. One will be at the closing of our program. The first piece, which we're about to hear, is a teaser for our May 7th Allegro Presents concert featuring the Philadelphia Orchestra members Chae Hung Chen on viola and Christine Lim on violin, performing Passacaglia for violin and viola by George Frederick Handel and arranged by Johann Halvorsen. Enjoy.
These past 13 months have been months of many challenges and disruptions to our regular lives, as well as opportunities to learn new things and take advantage of new opportunities as we have learned to live life virtually. In the midst of all this, your Athenaeum staff has been here with you, working to help bring you the learning and culture that you love, to serve you and our city as best we can. From the beginning of March 2020, we carefully followed the news, determining how emerging and updating dated guidelines and safety regulations affected our operations, and constantly recalibrated. We worked from home, learning how to handle tasks that usually require multiple staff, like processing, depositing, and acknowledging dues payments or paying bills remotely. And as you can see, I had the help of my daughter at home sometimes to get through a lot of that. We've learned by watching other organizations how to effectively do viral programs, and longed to return to the Athenaeum for those first 3 months when we all had to work at home. We sought ways to bring what you love about the Athenaeum to your own home, like an expanded ebook selection and vestibule pickup of books, new book clubs, weekly e-news, and remote research. Our staff learned many new skills together this year, and we learned how to work safely together and apart. We've been motivated because we love the work we do. We care deeply about you, and we love the great feedback we receive from you about the difference what we do makes in your lives. Thank you. If this past year has been a blur in many ways, our outstanding speakers in our virtual speaker series have stood out. We've been able to bring you guest speakers from across the globe and to host more in our virtual audience than we'd be able to fit into the Bush Room at the Athenaeum. In all, more than 4,000 households have attended our afternoon and evening virtual programs this past year, while more than 6,000 individuals have accessed our virtual talks on YouTube since we began putting up these virtual talks last fall. Besides fantastic local authors like Bradford Pearson, Cordelia Biddle, Vitold Rubchinsky, Nancy Moses, and Kareem Rosser, we were able to host luminaries like Leo Damrosch from Boston, Peniel Joseph in Austin, Gretchen Soren in New York, and the Honorable Malcolm Turnbull in Perth, Australia. Michelle Duster was the most popular, bringing in an audience of 277 households for her talk about Ida B. Wells. And Eddie Glaude Jr.'s talk about his eloquent book on James Baldwin has received nearly 1,000 hits on our YouTube channel. Our members have taken full advantage of virtual programming. And by members, I mean you. We've also drawn regulars from places as far afield as London, Nigeria, and Ireland, and from the membership of our sister membership libraries around the United States, who have also so graciously shared with us many fantastic programs that they have put on and invited you to participate in. We initiated afternoons at the Athenaeum with popular book clubs. We reinstituted Eric Simonis's brilliant monthly French lectures. And we started the highly attended noontime talks that feature staff and researchers helping us discover the riches in the Athenaeum's collections, including Bruce Laverty's fabulous 3-part series about the history of 219 South 6th Street. We continued our partnership with Opera Philadelphia and have all brought intimate live and live stream chamber music back to the library, including 3 performances this past fall and 3 more performances starting this coming Friday evening. In this past year, all of us have learned together how to ask questions using the chat feature. And those of us in the book clubs have enjoyed building new friendships as we talk about what we are reading with friends near and far. Most recently, we launched our first exhibition in a year, a celebration of 3 women artists who have long used our Regional Digital Imaging Center, or ARDIC, to digitize their artwork. And we will continue the exhibit focusing on Michelle Foster Lucas's art through the end of May if you are unable to make that exhibition. We invite you to come in and explore. Through regular Zoom meetings, staff have continued to deepen partnerships with other institutions in Philadelphia and with other historic membership libraries in order to share programming, ideas, and best practices, everything from how to apply for that PPP loan to when to open up and what safety guidelines really are important to follow. We're looking ahead to future collaborations also with many of these groups that will enrich the Athenaeum experience. When we were able to return more regularly to our workspace in June and then again this early winter, we've been so thrilled to welcome you back to browse, to study, to research, and to connect. Staff has also embarked on several major projects, like moving collections from one offsite storage to another offsite storage at the University of Pennsylvania, Libra, with the Athenaeum gallery space and a bush room as offloading spaces where we have reboxed and relabeled and made sure they are properly cataloged, hundreds upon thousands of boxes. We've also cleared excess weight off of our third floor space per the request of Keast and Hood, our engineers, so that we are not overloaded. You can see some of that work right there. Our small staff / catering kitchen has had some repairs made to it. As you can see, we've been fixing the back wall to deal with some seepage that has been coming in, and it's safely sealed, and new cabinets are going in even as we speak. The Regional Digital Imaging Center has been as busy as ever, fulfilling requests internally and from clients. We've also brought new items into our collections and deepened conversations about what stories and material about Philadelphia architecture and architects we are missing and would like to add. Staff has begun exploring the Athenaeum's own archive and digitizing records, including our 3 volumes of the Book of Strangers that documents visits by such esteemed visit figures as Aaron Burr and Eliza Hamilton, and deepening our knowledge of our own past. Even with the pandemic, we worked with 2 Charles Peterson interns in the spring, Dorothy Fitzgerald and Jeremiah DiBiase. And this most recent spring, we reworked the internship to welcome a new intern, Drexel Co-op student Carter Horton, who will also be back with us this summer. Earlier this year, we said goodbye, regretfully, to our longtime colleague and friend and building superintendent, Lou Fazzalo, who took a well-earned retirement. And we welcomed with joy our new building superintendent, Tom McCann, who stepped right in to become a part of the team. No job is too big or small for Tom, same as it had been for Lou. We are thrilled that this past year we continued to gain new members, even as we have not been able to offer you the full range of in-person services that we usually do. We can boast 12 new young friends, 18 new subscribers, and 25 new shareholders in this past year. And we are so thrilled that we have retained all of you as members, as faithful, committed members who love this place. Currently, we are collaborating with other national historic landmarks and with Global Philadelphia to host a Reopen House event on Sunday, April 18th, which we hope will generate more visibility and more new members as we provide tours and interactions with exciting elements of our collections. I invite you to check your weekly e-newsletter on Monday for information, and be sure to share this upcoming event with your friends. As you will soon hear in our year to come, the Athenaeum has much that is new and exciting around the corner. We look forward to continuing to grow, serve, and learn with you, our valued shareholders.
Beth and I are excited this afternoon to tell you about the Athenaeum plans for the coming year. But to start, I'd like to look ahead a bit farther than just 1 year and tell you about our new strategic plan to ensure the Athenaeum can survive and thrive long, long into the future. We're announcing this strategic plan for the first time this evening. It'll be posted shortly on our website, as Beth will explain. so you can read it for yourselves, as we hope you will. Let me just say that our strategic plan reflects years of thought and discussion on the part of our board, our staff, our shareholders, and nonprofit thought leaders throughout the community. Our strategic planning task force spent months debating and drafting this plan before our board voted unanimous approval earlier this year. There's quite a lot in this plan, and much of it won't be accomplished overnight, but it shows the path forward, and it'll help us set priorities. So let me give you a little background along with an overview. In July of 2019, when our Athenaeum board recruited Beth as our new executive director, and we did so with an eye to enhancing the role the Athenaeum plays in your lives and in the life of our community. Much as we all love the Athenaeum, our board believes it can and should do more for our shareholders, especially when you consider the resources that we have. Our wonderful building and location, our cultural treasures, and most importantly, our community of interested and interesting people, the people who comprise our membership, our surrounding neighborhoods, and the entire Philadelphia region. It's our intent to make the Athenaeum more welcoming, more visible, more hospitable and vibrant, more useful and more central to the lives of our shareholders and indeed to the cultural life of our city. Attracting Beth as our executive director was an important first step. Witness the magic that Beth has worked with the Athenaeum's programming over this past very challenging year, even though the building was closed for most of the year. She gave us everything from intimate chamber music concerts and visits from opera Philadelphia singers to outstanding speakers like Simon Winchester, Eddie Glaude Jr., Michelle Duster, Cordelia Biddle, and Witold Rybczynski, to the special art exhibit now in our gallery celebrating the work of 3 great Philadelphia artists. And by the way, our programs are drawing hundreds of new attendees from across the city, across the country, and across the world. Incidentally, the Athenaeum continued to gain new shareholders, subscribers, and young friends during this past year, which is downright amazing when you think about it. But we're just getting started at the Athenaeum. And as the pandemic continues to abate, God willing, and we're able to do more things in person, we'll keep expanding the topics and the cultural activities that we present. We'll keep enhancing the role we think the Athenaeum can play in your life and the cultural life of our city. So what's in our new strategic plan? What changes do we envision? Well, let's start with how we've restated the Athenaeum's mission, and here it is. The Athenaeum of Philadelphia nurtures curiosity in members and neighbors, strengthening our community through learning, discourse, and meaningful engagement. That's our new mission. Contrast that with our old mission statement, which began this way. The Athenaeum of Philadelphia is an independent, member-supported library and museum that engages members, scholars, and the interested general public to join actively in the cultural and intellectual life of Philadelphia and participate in historical, literary, and educational activities. As you can see, the essence of our mission has not changed, but note that our new mission statement is more active, energetic, and ambitious. It talks about nurturing curiosity, meaningful engagement, and using these activities to strengthen community. So there is a major difference in tone in our new strategic plan, and there is also a difference in what we envision, in the scope of what we would like to offer you. The Athenaeum plan rests on 4 strategic pillars, 4 precepts that are intertwined and interdependent. These 4 goals, we believe, are indispensable to ensuring a strong, sustainable future for the Athenaeum of Philadelphia. There are a great many specific details behind each of these four pillars, specific tactics that you won't see online, but all of them flow from these 4 main pillars, which are first, starting from the top, prioritizing our commitment to diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. And by diversity, we mean that in the broadest possible sense of the word: race, gender, age, you name it. And to support that pillar, our plan has measures to make the Athenaeum more welcoming to a broader range of culturally curious people through our programming and collections and by pursuing creative partnerships and fellowships. The second pillar is actively increasing our membership base, our shareholders, subscribers, and young friends, while serving and retaining our existing members, meaning all of you. Our plans here include making the Athenaeum's brand, image, and culture more outward-facing and more broadly appealing. They include reconfiguring the hours when we're open and creating new membership levels and benefits that reflect the different ways people want to engage with us. And they also include improving the experience of being in our building. And I'll come back to that point in a moment. Pillar number 3 is expanding and engaging audiences with compelling, creative programming and by better activating our collections. In other words, by doing more with what we've got and being inclusive about the range of new things we acquire in the future. And our plan's 4th pillar is aligning our financial, material, and intellectual resources with our mission, vision, values to sustain the Athenaeum going forward. This pillar is all about good governance, good stewardship, and good management. Let me come back to the point I mentioned a minute ago about improving the experience of actually being in our building, enhancing the Athenaeum's interior to make it more physically inviting, comfortable, and useful for our shareholders and visitors. Beth will tell you about one important improvement that we've made acoustically, but we have further plans that are not spelled out in this document. But rest assured, we've been thinking very hard about making the Athenaeum's interior more functional, more comfortable, and more welcoming. And we expect to tell you more along these lines in the next few months. That's a very cursory overview of our strategic plan. Please take a look at it online, and I hope you'll let us know what you think. Because the whole point of our plan is to use the Athenaeum to better serve our members and our community. But right now, let's hear from Beth about some concrete developments that you'll see in the year ahead.
Thank you, Ned, for your introduction to the Athenaeum of Philadelphia, a strategic plan for growth, which provides the Athenaeum with an updated mission statement and vision that draws direct lines between our origin story and our contemporary context. I'd like to say a few words about my hopes and intentions with the strategic plan before sharing some of these concrete steps. In 1814, our founders were immersed in the excitement and hope of a newly independent nation and the challenges and possibilities of marrying values of liberty, prosperity, and justice with the complexities of a growing, bustling, energetic, and diverse country and city. They created the Athenaeum of Philadelphia as an organization that would disseminate useful knowledge to members of the community who were eager for reading, research, and dialogue. Like us, they lived in an age of discovery and transformation when a curiosity and hunger for knowledge was imperative for civic health. Our new strategic plan, as Ned lined out, charts a courageous, innovative, and faithful way forward into a sustainable and vibrant future. It addresses continued membership and revenue decline by focusing our core values and services on the growing and diverse community around us, inviting the spirit of curiosity, discovery, inspiration, and exploration that motivates so many in the greater Philadelphia, like you and I and other people that we know and have yet to meet, in our quest for connection and fullness of life. The strategic plan challenges and invites us at the Athenaeum to experiment with new ideas and new approaches, to work hard to reinvigorate ourselves and our organization, and to learn new things about ourselves and our world in the process. As we move forward, we do well to remember that the strategic plan is a living document that we will update and revise along the way as we learn and grow. I want to say how grateful I am to the members of the task force, which included staff and board members, as well as young friend Bradford Pearson, for their thoughtful and meaningful work over the past 6 months. Much appreciation also belongs to Ivy Barsky, our wonderful consultant and guide through the process. And to the many of you who participated in our focus groups or responded to our survey in what seems like another lifetime, February and early March of 2020. Every Athenaeum member who takes the time to share with me in person or via email or note or phone call your own ideas and dreams for our organization has been so important in this process. The members of the wider community and leaders of area institutions who sat down with Ivy Barsky for conversation about the Athenaeum were incredibly generous with their time and insights that helped our task force determine priorities. Thank you to every one of you. Having a strategic plan, as Ned says, means having a vision. And ours is to harness our many resources to strengthen our growing community through ideas, cultural engagement, and fellowship. Our plan includes many specifics to do that. Some are efforts that can be effected easily, and some will emerge over several years. Without getting into the weeds, I'd like to share with you just 3 changes that we are making that should have an immediate positive effect for all of us. As Ned mentioned, part of the plan includes making the Athenaeum as comfortable, welcoming, and usable by members and guests as we can. Prior to our closing last March, I heard 3 recurring concerns from you. First, your desire for more comfortable places to read and work in the library. Second, the difficulty we've all had hearing and comprehending speakers at our lectures due to our building's challenging acoustics. And third, your desire for a more user-friendly website. While the board is still working on ways to address the first concern, I have good news to report on the other 2. We have made acoustical improvements in the Bush Room that will make our return to in-person programming a pleasure for us all. With the help of the highly respected acoustical engineering firm Ascentech, the Athenaeum completed an acoustical study of the Bush Room and has been making necessary adjustments to minimize the acoustical reverberations that have made it so difficult to understand the speaker at the lectern. We've added a modular curtain system along 3 walls of the room to soften the space. You can see one of the curtains behind me now, and invested in a top-notch new speaker system that is actually designed with the human voice as its first priority, instead of rock concerts, which are the norm for most speakers. While our return to in-person programming is not yet set in stone, and how I wish that I had a crystal ball and could answer, in the definitive for everybody who has asked me when I think everything will go back to normal. We don't know, but we are keeping a close eye on the success of the city of Philadelphia, the state of Pennsylvania, and the entire country in taming the pandemic and opening up venues. Right now, city of Philadelphia and the state of Pennsylvania have the maximum number of people occupancy for in-house, indoor events at 15% of maximum occupancy, and we're hoping that will increase. Right now, that would mean about 15 people in the Bush Room at a time. But our tentative plan is to return to a combination of in-person Zoom and live-streamed programming this fall. In the year ahead, we're going to continue building and enriching our program offerings, not only our lectures and exhibitions, concerts, and film series, but also the opportunities we afford our members and community to engage with one another. And while we can't wait to see more of you face to face, we're also going to leverage these technologies we've all learned so much about during the pandemic in order to expand our reach and our quality. even as we rediscover the sweet joys of shaking hands with one another and embracing old friends, not to mention gathering together to learn from one another and converse. Now, finally, the Athenaeum is primed to premiere a new website. On May 1st, when you go to our website address, www.philathenaeum.org, you will discover a brand new look and brand new ways to interact with the Athenaeum. You will find pages for events, for books, for access to our digitized collections, to special collections, and to new research resources that are easily accessible and easily understandable. You'll be able to enjoy learning more about your staff on the staff page with photos and bios, information about visiting and arranging tours with your friends when they come to visit and want to learn more about the Athenaeum. You should be able to easily renew your membership or set up a recurring monthly donation to support our work. Our new website is designed to work with phones and tablets as well as traditional computer screens for those of you who get frustrated trying to scroll and figure out how we work on your iPhone. We have emphasized images and helpful information about who we are and what we do so curious visitors can more easily discover the jewel that the Athenaeum is. And I can't wait for all of you to see it because it really is beautiful. Shareholder Michael Bedrosian has generously given hours upon hours of his time to program our new website, which was designed by Veronica Miller in close consultation with staff. Much appreciation goes to our own Gabrielle Rodriguez for shepherding the process and the many individuals who have beta tested the site over the past month. Creating a new website is a huge undertaking, much bigger than I had thought it would be, and one we believe will help to increase our visibility and welcome to all who love learning, discourse, and meaningful engagement. Now, our staff, I want you to know, is committed to living into our new strategic plan with you. Your involvement with our work, our play, and our learning at the Athenaeum is vitally important for our present and for our future. Look soon for more information about our plans and about ways to volunteer to serve in many ways with your wealth and with your resources and with your time. An invitation to help us meet our budget commitments and to move forward. We want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. Ned wants to hear from you. We want to celebrate with you who we have been and who we are becoming at the Athenaeum of Philadelphia. We appreciate you listening now and hope you've been taking notes and will send us questions or come in to talk with us because we are excited to share with you all that we're planning to do. Ned, I'd like to turn over the meeting to you now so that you can lead the business portion of the meeting. Thank you.
We come now to the business segment portion of our annual meeting, which we promise will be brief. And let me remind you before we start that if you have questions, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screens to pose them, and we will do our best to answer. But let me begin by calling on our distinguished treasurer, Don Roberts, for his financial report. Don?
Thank you, Ned. We've all just heard about the great plans that lie ahead and some big concepts. I hope you will indulge me in the next few minutes because the treasurer's report is mainly details and what has happened in the past year, but it's all been good. And before I bring up on the screen two financial papers, I wanted to just point out three, I think, important aspects of 2020 fiscal year. One is, as Beth has mentioned, the Athenaeum closed down on the end of business day on March 13th, 2020. And we've been closed and open episodically since then. So our 2020 year was affected by roughly 25% of it by the COVID-19. The second point I'd like to make is the board of directors, along with the executive director, decided to send the staff home on close of business on March 13th. But the board made the further decision that we have been blessed over the years by long-serving, very talented members of our staff. And so the board elected to send people home with full pay, full benefits, and that has continued right up until the very present, and we intend to keep going until we get back to normal. So that was the second point. And the third one I'd like you to know is that our director and Susan Lee, our bookkeeper, did an extraordinary financial transaction right at the end of fiscal 2020. They got together papers and documents that are needed to apply for a loan grant from the Payroll Protection Plan and from the Small Business Administration. As a result of their hard work, and really better than most nonprofits in Philadelphia, by June 30th, 2020, the Athenaeum had received $206,000 from the PPP plan and $10,000 from the SBA. Both of those are grants. And believe me, $216,000 last year was very welcome. So now I'd like to, if I can, turn to the, we have the balance sheet and, oh, excuse me, good. We have revenues and balance sheet. And these look small to me, and I think they probably might be as well for members. So I'm going to just highlight very quickly our annual report for 2020 received an unmodified or clean opinion from Tate Weller. That's the very highest auditing standard that an institution can receive. And in the statement of operations and revenue and expenses, if you go down to the third line from the bottom, it says $86,000. And it explains that excess of operating revenue over expenses before depreciation. If you want to know in layman's language that you and I can understand, in 2020, the Athenaeum paid all of its expenses and it still had $86,000 left over from revenue. That actually was higher than the year before when we had 72,000. So how did we do that? I've mentioned our loyal staff. Beth Hessel, our director, and members of our staff throughout the year were very careful on cost control. And secondly, all of you as shareholders, you stepped up and you increased your annual contributions, and we had more new members than in the previous year. So thank you so much. You literally very much a part of our financial picture. If we look at the sheet on the right, this is the balance sheet. And again, there are a lot of numbers here, and I just want to zero in on three that I think are important. If you go down about 5 lines from the top in the 2020 column, you'll see mutual fund, $13,700,000. That represents the Athenaeum's, the bequests and the endowments and monies that we have been given over the years, which we have been careful to invest and to protect. And we have invested that 13.7 million in Vanguard's Wellington Admiral Fund, which is 67% stocks and 33% bonds. If you go down a couple more lines, there's an obscure reference of beneficial interest in perpetual trust. The shorthand for that is the Athenaeum's 20% share in the Lewis Elkin Trust Fund. This is a trust fund that Mr. Elkin gave to the Athenaeum 120 years ago, and we have benefited. The trustee is Wells Fargo, and we and 4 other beneficiaries each have $6.3 million from the Lewis Elkin Fund. You look at those two, the 13.7 and the 6.3, that's $20 million of endowment. On the liability side, total liabilities in 2020, 319,000. So in the way I look at it, shorthand, $20 million of endowment plus several million of other assets and only 319 of total liabilities. I think that the board of directors are being careful stewards of the Athenaeum's financial services. Now, I can imagine I typically would stop right here, but I would like to answer what I think a lot of you might have in your mind. Well, what's happened in the last 9.5 months? I mean, that's nice to know about June 30th, 2020, but this is April 2021. The good news is we have reason to think, based on the flow of revenue and expenses through the first 9 months of this year, we will be at least break even, if not a small surplus. Not as much as perhaps in 2020, but probably a small surplus in 2021. Barring any changes in the stock markets between now and June 30th, it's highly likely that our balance sheet for 2021 will look very similar to 2020. Now, I'd love to take questions, but I think in the interest of time, you could contact Beth Hessel, and I could receive those, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have. So now I would like to turn the meeting back to Ned Scharf.
Thank you, Don, for that excellent report. And now, Beth, would you please tell us how we've done in terms of all those beautiful new members over this past year?
Thank you, Ned. This is something we spend a lot of time with at the Athenaeum: monthly, quarterly reports, every board meeting, updating on where we are at in shareholders, keeping an eye on who has paid their dues and who has not, and how to encourage new members. So these numbers are very important for the health and well-being of our organization, not just in financial terms, but in the strength of our community. In the past 12 months, from April 2020 to April 2021, we have had shifts in our membership. We have gained 18 new subscribers, although we lost 21, for a total of 68 subscribers. Young friends, we gained 12 new young friends. We lost 18 for a total of 34 young friends as of April 2021. As for shareholders, we gained 25 new shareholders, as I mentioned earlier in the year in review. We did lose 10 whose memberships lapsed, but we have a total of 6, I think my number's wrong here, something like 900 and something. I'm missing a little number here, a digit, 900 and something shareholders. We are going to have, after this business meeting, a moment to remember the shareholders that we have lost this past year, 19 shareholders that we are aware of. And if there are any names that are missing when you see that list, please do contact me, because we want to know and to be able to reach out to those families. We so far, as you know, it is time to pay your dues. We have about 650 shareholders who have paid their dues as of today. You might be one of them whose dues are in the mail, and so we cannot count you yet, but are glad if your payment is in the mail. And we have about 350 of you who have not yet paid your dues, and we encourage you as soon as possible to put those dues into the mail so that we can have you up to date and we can make our budget. All in all, we are in a strong position as compared to other years. We are in a strong position as compared to many other organizations in the number of members that we have. We have lost fewer than we have in past years, and we have continued to gain members. So Ned, I hope that is a report that will please the board, and I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Beth. And to you new shareholders, welcome. We're really happy to have you. Next, we're going to ask you to vote on two very important matters, though a good number of you have already cast your proxy ballots. First, we're going to ask our shareholders to vote on a proposed change to the Athenaeum of Philadelphia's bylaws. We've sent you a link to this new bylaws language. But for those of you who have not voted yet, you can do so now by clicking yes or no on your screens. This new language, I'll probably get questions about this, but this new language corrects Article 8 of our bylaws, which covers liability and indemnification of our directors and our employees. We are proposing this change on the advice of counsel, who have informed us that changes in Pennsylvania state law over the years have rendered the existing language in our bylaws completely out of date. Hence the need for new language citing relevant state law. Before we turn to the other matter, the election or re-election of Athenaeum directors, let me first express appreciation to 4 directors who are stepping down today. Richard Bartholomew, who I'm delighted to say will continue serving on our superintendent's committee. Frank Cooper, our wonderful vice president. Frank Grebe, a member of our board since 1974. And John C. Tootin Jr., a director since 1988. On behalf of our board and our shareholders, our deepest thanks to all 4 of you. Our board is divided into 3 classes of directors, each serving 3-year terms. Today, we ask you to vote on 6 candidates nominated for 3-year terms that will end in April of 2024. They are Joan Countryman, Robert E. Link, the Honorable Gregory Montanaro, David B. Rowland, Theodore Schmeichen, and Lynn Schwartz. Again, many of you have already voted your proxies, but for those of you who haven't, you can do so now on screen. Thank you. And do we have results? Yeah, we do have results, and the change in our bylaws is approved, and our slate of 6 directors also approved. Sorry. Do we have any questions? No. Okay, so thank you. This concludes the business segment of our meeting. And now for some excitement, the announcement of our 2020 Literary Award winners. Beth?
Tonight, we celebrate literary excellence. Since 1949, the Athenaeum of Philadelphia has recognized books of outstanding literary merit, initially ones written by authors living within 30 miles of City Hall, with a literary award. This year's jury updated the guidelines for the literary award to honor books of outstanding literary merit by Philadelphia area authors, as well as books whose subject matter focus upon the city of Philadelphia, expanding the boundaries and the range. Winners are chosen by a panel of Athenaeum shareholders, all avid readers who serve voluntarily, reading reams of books and meeting regularly to deliberate. The award, for the first time this year, comes with a $1,000 cash prize supported by generous donors, as well as a public reception and lecture through the Charles Wharton Stork Lecture Fund. Previous recipients of this award have included some of the region's most celebrated authors and thinkers, including Catherine Drinker Bowen, Edmund Bacon, Chaim Potok, Camille Paglia, Stephen Freed, Stephen Ujifusa, Liz Moore, Erica Armstrong Dunbar, and last year's winners Patrick Spiro and Madeline Miller. In February, the Athenaeum announced the shortlist, a highly competitive list of finalists remarkable for their powerful and compelling narratives and the notice that they have received from other award programs. The shortlisted works are Against the Loveless World by Susan Abulhawa and published by Simon & Schuster. The Beauty in Breaking by Michelle Harper and published by Riverhead Books. And Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed and published by G.P. Putnam and Sons. Now I'd like to turn the stage over to Dr. William Jantz, a member of the Literary Award Committee, to announce the winner of the 2020 Literary Award. Bill, on behalf of all of the Athenaeum members, let me thank you and the rest of the jury for your excellent work. We excitedly await the announcement.
Well, and thank you, Beth. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I would also like to thank all of the members of the Literary Committee who meet frequently through the year and diligently evaluate books that are candidates for the Literary Award. This past year yielded an abundance of excellent works by Philadelphia authors, and the short list of candidates has already been presented. Our committee has found one book to stand out from the rest for its courage, beautiful literary craftsmanship, and transformative influence. For the year 2020, the committee has selected as the winner of the Athenaeum of Philadelphia Literary Award, The Beauty in Breaking by Michelle Harper. Michelle Harper is an emergency physician who has been in practice for over a decade. I briefly met her a few years ago when she was in the emergency department at the VA Medical Center in Philadelphia. She is a graduate of Harvard University and the Renaissance School of Medicine at Stony Brook. The Beauty in Breaking is her first book and has been a New York Times bestseller. In this book, she describes and examines her unique life experiences with a passion born of intense personal hardship. She rewards the reader with insights into what is universal in human experience. Her memoir is the work of a gifted storyteller and a dedicated professional determined to maintain her sense of optimism. Reviews in mainstream media have also been laudatory. The book has been described as wise and elegant by the Boston Globe, a book for our time by Ms. Magazine, and riveting, heartbreaking, sometimes difficult, always inspiring by the New York Times Book Review. With this book, in our committee's view, Dr. Harper has created a work well worthy of our recognition. It is now my distinct privilege to present the Athenaeum of Philadelphia Literary Award for 2020 to Michelle Harper, author of The Beauty in Breaking.
Thank you very much. It is a true honor to receive this award from the Athenaeum, one of Philadelphia's historic museums and libraries, which is extra sweet because my two favorite organizations are museums and libraries. So thank you. I've been invited to read a short section from the book, so I think that the introduction would be appropriate. As I cradled my patient's head in my hands, I looked past the watery wells of his eyes. For a moment, I didn't notice the blood that ran in rivulets across my gloves as it poured from his scalp, or the bits of gray and white brain matter that dotted the sheets, the beeping of the monitors around me, the popping sound of IV catheter tops being flicked off by nurses, the screeching of wheels as equipment was dragged across linoleum floors, the nurses and techs yelling directions at one another, the stifled gasps erupting from the two medical students on their first ER shift, attempting in vain not to be startled. All were drowned out as I stood over this young man and tried to ease his agitation. This is the part of being a doctor that medical school doesn't cover, that case reviews don't prepare you for. This is the part you can't really know until you're in the moment. You are the person responsible for saving the human life that slowly slips through your fingers while silently begging for final redemption under the demanding fluorescent lights. I am the doctor whose palms bolster the head of the 20-year-old man with a gunshot wound to his brain. I support the baby as she takes her first breath outside her mother's womb. I hug the wife whose husband is dying from advanced liver disease as she implores the universe to take away his pain. I claim no special powers, nor do I know how to handle death any better than you. What I know is that for 36 hours a week, I reside in the melee that is a hospital emergency room, where I'm called upon to be salve, antidote, and sometimes Charon. Most of the time, my job is to keep death at bay. When I am successful, I send the patient back out into the world. When I'm not, I am there as life passes away. I'm not so deluded as to think that I alone am capable of making that kind of difference. I'm well aware that the determination of who lives and who dies doesn't happen at my hands alone. There are times when, despite the designs of any patient, family member, friend, or doctor, death will come. Then I am witness. What I can do is be the fairy woman who holds the body as the last breath escapes, the one who, like the night sentinel, calls out the hour and does her best to convey that all is well. Like everyone, I am in this world for only a brief time, and as for many, blessings abound in my life, and they abound amid the struggle, amid my struggle. Over the decades, I've learned to cultivate a personal state of stillness. As a child, that stillness grew from a dissociation I stumbled upon that allowed me to better endure life with a father who was a batterer and with a family legacy of victimhood. As a black woman, I navigate an American landscape that claims to be post-racial when every waking moment reveals the contrary. An American landscape that requires all women to pound tenaciously against the proverbial glass ceiling, which we've since discovered is made of palladium, the kind of glass that would sooner bow than shatter. When I began writing this book, I had started over. My marriage to my college sweetheart had ended. I had moved to a new city to start a new job. Plagued with doubt, I found myself having to reevaluate my life. Living through such changes was difficult. Now I see those junctures, when everything I had counted on came to an abrupt end, as a privilege. They gave me the opportunity to be uncertain, and in that uncertainty grew opportunity. From childhood to now, I've been broken many times. I suspect most people have. In practicing the Japanese art of kintsukuroi, one repairs broken pottery by filling in the cracks with gold, silver, or platinum. The choice to highlight the breaks with precious metals not only acknowledges them, but also pays tribute to the vessel that has been torn apart by the mutability of life. The previously broken object is considered more beautiful for its imperfections. In life, too, even greater brilliance can be found after the mending. As an emergency medicine physician, I know how to be still for others. I know how to call down the gods of repose and silence, to take the measure of their power in the moments when I need it most. This stillness I inhabit as I pause, push, breathe, and grow. The stories I tell here will, I hope, take you into the chaos of emergency medicine and show you where the center is. The center is where we find the sturdy roots of insight that can't be windthrown by passing storms. In their grounding, they offer nourishment that can, should we allow it, lead to lives of ever-increasing growth. I had to find this center for myself as I took stock of experiences that were exceedingly painful, yet that ultimately filled me with the promise of a meaningful rebirth, a rebirth that is worth the surviving, worth the healing, worth the repair. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for that beautiful reading. And we will be having her sign the Athenaeum's copy of the Beauty in Breaking, so that you'll hopefully be able to have a chance to read the book yourself in very short period of time if you haven't already. Again, Thank you for your attention.
About 8 years ago, the Athenaeum created a new literary award for the meritorious books about art and architecture. The jury for this award seek books of scholarly and literary excellence written by authors who live within 30 miles of City Hall. Considering the many art museums, engagement with architecture and preservation, and institutions of higher learning in the greater Philadelphia region, this might seem an easy enough task. However, while there is often an abundance of books published in any given year about art or architecture, the jury must find the ones that pay attention to scholarship while creating a narrative that is accessible and appealing to a general audience. Past honorees have included Witold Rybczynski, Carol Eaton Soltis, Judith Stein, and Barbara Miller Lane. The Art and Architecture Award comes with a public lecture with reception for the recipient. I am delighted to introduce Daniel Traister, Art and Architecture jury member, to announce the 2020 Art and Architecture Literary Award. Daniel.
Thank you, Beth. Dr. Satoko Parker, who is chair of the Athenaeum's Art and Architecture Literary Award Committee, is still coping with the aftermath of a house flood. I'm Dan Traister, a member of that committee representing us at today's presentation. My fellow committee members and I thank Satoko for her years leading it, and I want to add my own personal thanks to the entire committee for the time and effort they and we give to this process. As one of its members, I can testify to how warmly we felt about Lynn Miller and Therese Dolan's Salute, France Meets Philadelphia, and its focus on Philadelphia's relationships over time with French social and political thought, culture, and society. Unanimous about the book's quality and its readability, we also agreed about its ability to attract, interest, and inform a general readership while simultaneously meeting scholarly expectations. Its authors emerged from two disciplines not always thought complementary. Dr. Miller from Temple University's Political Science Department, Dr. Dolan from Temple's Art History Department. Together, they shed light on how France has affected both Philadelphia's central role in American political and social history and its equally central role in American cultural and intellectual development. Historians as different from one another as Edwin Wolfe and Thomas Bender would applaud their redirection of long-standing overemphasis on New England to attend to this Middle Atlantic keystone state. Almost from the first, it became clear that Salute would be our committee's unanimous choice, as in the end it turns out to be. We're honored to present Salute as the Athenaeum's 2020 Literary Award for Art and Architecture.
It's been a great honor to know that we are able to accept this award from the Athenaeum, one of Philadelphia's most distinguished institutions. There's so much to say about what we attempt in Salute, and I can only give you a tiny hint of what's inside. Let me begin by reminding you that Philadelphia was born in the 1680s as a planned city. Its very form meant to suggest egalitarianism, with streets on a grid marking off blocks of land and of regular and nearly identical size. It provided space for private enterprise along with robust civic life, while attuning residents to nature by creating green public spaces in the city's 4 quadrants, and at the center a square for municipal government. More than 2 centuries later, after growth beyond Penn's dreams, city planners from France transformed the city with a bold initiative completely out of character for Philadelphia at the time. Yet their plan respected, even reinforced, Penn's model of an urban settlement that placed civic virtue at its center, brought green landscapes to its heart, and prepared the city serendipitously, if unintentionally, for its post-industrial future. The Benjamin Franklin Parkway, in the view of one critic, was the greatest achievement of its kind in America at the time. This, of course, being in the era of the City Beautiful movement that swept the nation. Paul-Philippe Cret, who was trained in the École des Beaux-Arts, knew Haussmann's Paris very well when he arrived in Philadelphia as a young architect early in the 20th century to take a job at Penn. He carried with him a view he shared, whether he knew it or not, with Philadelphia's founder. Both he and Penn believed that the public realm was more important than the private. As a way of demonstrating that idea, Penn had suggested placing civic government at the town's center, which was a unique idea in America at the time. Half a century after that dream was finally realized with the construction of City Hall, Cret was instrumental in making that most important civic building the endpoint of his elegant new boulevard. And yes, the fact that the Benjamin Franklin resembles the Champs-Élysées in Paris is no accident. It was quite intentional on the part of Cret and his co-designer, Jacques Grébert. The grandeur of the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, like that of City Hall, was meant to elevate the public realm. Penn's plan and the Parkway shared an emphasis on civic order. Thank you.
I will continue from where Lynn left off and talk about my contribution in the art and art history of Philadelphia and France. The Founding Fathers perceptively realized the value of the arts to create an image of the new nation and to promote its aspirations and achievements to the world. John Adams traced the progression of his needs to a time when the arts could take their place. Quote, "I must study politics and war so that my sons may have liberty to study mathematics and philosophy. My sons study mathematics and philosophy, geography, natural history, naval architecture, navigation, commerce, and agriculture in order to give their children a right to study paintings, poetry, music, architecture, statuary, tapestry, and porcelain." Thomas Jefferson's residency in Paris from 1784 to 1789 inspired him to write the following to a friend. "Were I to tell you how much I enjoy French architecture, sculpture, painting, music, I should want words." Founded in 1805, the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts on North Broad Street became the first official art museum and training grounds for artists in the country. Many of the faculty encouraged their students to go to France to study and to look at the great works of art. As Paris became the European center for the arts in the 19th century, many artists such as Rembrandt Peale, Thomas Eakins, Mary Cassatt, Henry Ossawa Tanner, the Pennsylvania Impressionists, and 20th century members of the Eight sought inspiration and training in France. As Richard Harding Davis wrote, "The best American painters were those who made use of Paris instead of Paris making use of them." The saying, "Every man has two countries, and his own and France," has been attributed to both Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. Although the original saying derived from a French play from the early 19th century, this sentiment underlies the visual and intellectual joys our book has attempted to provide. I join Lynn in thanking the Athenaeum for this wonderful award. Thank you.
2020 was a difficult year for many of us, and we are not quite out of the woods. We have done all we could to keep ourselves and our loved ones and our community safe from the coronavirus while we ached to interact with family and friends. We have longed to gather together, and we are hoping that we are soon on our way back to doing that. But during this year of separation, we have grieved with friends and neighbors who have lost loved ones to COVID and other illness. And we have grieved that we have not been able to gather together in the celebrations of life that normally we would have done. At the Athenaeum of Philadelphia, all of us share together in remembering shareholders who died this past year. I invite you to join us for a few minutes of silence as we see on screen the names of those we have lost. If you see that a name is missing, I ask you to please contact us at the Athenaeum and let us know so we can share their names as well. Please join me now. Thank you for joining me in that moment. I invite us now to listen to a gorgeous piece, The Swan from Carnival of the Animals by Camille Saint-Saëns, performed at the Athenaeum last fall by Clancy Newman on cello and Angel Lynn on harp. Many thanks to our artists and to Allegro Presents for allowing us to share their performances this evening. Enjoy the music.
That was marvelous. We hope you've enjoyed tonight's annual meeting. Bit of a departure from previous meetings and an experiment in virtual gathering. We're glad you came, but we can't wait to see you face to face very soon. The Athenaeum of Philadelphia is an exciting place to learn and grow in useful knowledge, to soar in the beauty of art and good books, music, and architecture, and to deepen our sense of community through great conversation with one another. The board and staff and I all hope that you join us in another exciting year. Beth?
Thank you, Ned. As you just said, we can't wait to see all of you, whether at virtual programs, picking up books from the library, doing research, or coming this fall, fingers crossed, for in-person events. Thank you, each of you, for being a vital part of our Athenaeum family, of thinkers and learners, of readers and writers, of people who hope and dream and do. On behalf of the staff, thank you for letting us serve you. Many thanks also to the staff and volunteers who made tonight's event possible, not least Tess Galen for keeping us running tonight and for helping us make those cocktails at the beginning of this event. We wish each and every one of you a pleasant evening and a wonderful rest of your week. Good night.